Have you ever really stopped to think about what happens inside SAP S/4HANA when a product actually ships out? Well, today we're going to follow that journey, right from the user's screen all the way down into the database schema. We're going to see the simple click that gets a product out the door. And then we'll dive deep into the huge architectural shifts that every single developer needs to know about. So let's get into it. So this is the big question we're tackling today. When a worker in a warehouse picks an item off a shelf and sends it on its way, it kicks off this whole chain reaction in the system. Our goal here is to connect that physical, real-world action to the massive data model simplifications that have happened under the hood in S/4HANA. It's really a story about a single button click and the database revolution that it represents.
All right, let's start where the action happens, on the warehouse floor. We've got a sales order, it's ready to be shipped. So what's the very first thing a user does in the system to get that product moving?
Okay, so the whole thing kicks off in a transaction called VL01N. This is where we create what's called an outbound delivery. You just pop in the sales order number, and boom, the system knows exactly what needs to be shipped. Now, step 3 is where reality hits the system. You enter the quantity you've actually picked. So if the order was for 20, but you only managed to pick 18, you enter 18. It's a super important step. Then once everything is confirmed, you hit the magic button, Post Goods Issue, or PGI. And trust me, that one click changes everything.
So you've just clicked Post Goods Issue. To the user, it might feel like the document just saved and they're done. But for the finance folks, for the accountants, this is the moment that everything gets very, very real.
And here it is, the financial impact in black and white. The second you post the goods issue, the system automatically creates this accounting document. It credits your inventory, which basically means the value of those goods is now officially off your company's books. At the exact same time, it debits an account called cost of goods sold, which is an expense. This is the precise moment the system starts calculating your profit margin on that sale. And the key thing to remember is this is all based on the cost of the goods, not the selling price. The system is essentially saying, we don't own this asset anymore. Okay, time to switch hats. We've seen what the user does and sees, but now let's put on our developer goggles. What's going on in the database tables when that Post Goods Issue button is clicked? This is where S/4HANA completely changed the game.
So the next couple of slides are absolutely mission critical for any ABAP developer working in an S/4HANA environment. The old ways of doing things are just gone. And if your code is still looking for data in the old places, it's not just going to be slow, it's going to break. Let's see exactly what's changed. To really get this change, let's use a little analogy. In the old SAP ECC system, if you wanted to know the status of a delivery, has it been picked, has it shipped yet, you couldn't just look at the delivery document data itself. You had to go look somewhere else, kind of like checking a separate central status board for an update. And this slide lays it out perfectly. That status board I was talking about, it was actually 2 tables, VBUK for the overall header status and VBUP for the individual item statuses. So every single time your program needed to check a status, it had to do an extra read from the database to go look at these tables. But in S/4HANA, forget about them. VBUK and VBUP are obsolete. They're gone. Instead, those status fields are now just part of the main delivery tables themselves, LIKP for the header and LISP for the items. So to wrap up that analogy, S/4HANA just stamps shipped right onto the delivery document itself. You don't have to run over to a separate board to check anymore. It's way simpler, it's way faster, and it makes your code so much cleaner. It's a really fundamental and frankly brilliant simplification. But the simplification doesn't end there. That Post Goods Issue we talked about, the event that updates all the inventory, that got a massive upgrade too. SAP introduced what they call a single source of truth for every single inventory movement.
See, in the old world, when you did a goods issue, the data was split between a header table, MKPF, and an item table, MSEG. So anytime you wanted to run a report, you had to join these tables together, which could really slow things down. Well, in S/4HANA, every inventory movement, goods issues, goods receipts, transfers, you name it, gets recorded in one single gigantic table called MatDoc. It's the universal journal for inventory, which means for analytics and reporting, you now have one place to go for the truth.
Okay, so we've walked through the functional process, and we've peeked under the hood at the technical revolution. What does this all boil down to for you, the developer, on a Monday morning? What do you absolutely have to remember from all this? This slide right here is your cheat sheet.
First, and I cannot stress this enough, stop using VBUK and VBUP. They aren't there anymore. Your code will fail. From now on, you get your status fields, like the delivery status LFSTK, directly from the delivery tables, LIKP and LIPS. Simple as that. Second, anytime you're building a report that touches inventory data, your go-to table is MatDoc. The payoff for doing this is huge. Your code will be cleaner, it'll be easier to understand, and your reports will run so much faster because the database isn't jumping through hoops anymore.
And that really brings us to our final thought for today. With these old, clunky tables gone and powerful, single sources of truth like MatDoc in their place, the very data core of S/4HANA is just fundamentally simpler and faster. So the real question becomes, what can we as developers build now? What kinds of real-time analytics or smarter applications can we create that just weren't even possible before? The foundation has been rebuilt, and that opens up a whole new world of possibilities. Thanks for joining me.